Saul of Tarsus, a name synonymous with religious zeal. He was a devout Jew. He was a Pharisee of Pharisees. Saul was utterly dedicated to the law of Moses. He believed in its absolute authority. His upbringing in Tarsus, a renowned center of learning, had instilled in him a deep understanding of Jewish scripture and tradition. Saul was a man of conviction. He was also a man of action. This potent combination would shape his early life. It would set him on a collision course with a new movement. This movement was centered around a figure named Jesus of Nazareth, who witnesses claimed was crucified, buried, and rose from the dead on the third day. Saul viewed the followers of Jesus as a threat. They were a dangerous sect. They were blaspheming against God. Their claims about Jesus being the Messiah were outrageous. They were a stain on the purity of Judaism. He felt a righteous anger. It burned within him. It fueled his desire to eradicate this nascent faith. He was determined to protect his beloved Judaism from this perceived heresy. Saul, empowered by his authority, actively persecuted the early Christians. He saw it as his duty. He participated in the persecution with unwavering conviction. He believed he was serving God. He was a hunter. The followers of Jesus were his prey. They were scattered throughout the region. He pursued them relentlessly. Saul was present at the stoning of Stephen. Stephen, a man full of faith, became the first martyr for the Christian faith. Saul's heart was hardened. He saw Stephen's death as a victory. It was a triumph for his cause. He was sure he was on the right side of God. He was certain of it. The persecution of the early Christians intensified. Saul remained at the forefront. He was relentless. His reputation as a persecutor grew. He became feared and hated in equal measure. Saul's actions were not limited to Jerusalem. He pursued Christians into other regions. He was driven by a burning zeal. He was determined to stamp out this growing movement called the Followers of the Way. Saul obtained letters from the high priest. These letters gave him authority. He would travel to Damascus. Damascus was a vibrant city. It held a growing community of Jesus followers. Saul went there with a singular purpose: to arrest them. He would bring them back to Jerusalem in chains. He would see them punished. Saul journeyed to Damascus. He was filled with righteous anger. He was blind to the truth. He was blind to the reality of who Jesus was. He would soon have his eyes opened. His journey to Damascus would change everything. It would be a turning point. It would be the start of his transformation. It would set him on a new path. It would be a path of faith, love, and redemption. The journey to Damascus was long. Saul and his companions traveled under the scorching sun. Saul's mind raced. He thought about his mission. He would not rest until he had purged the Christian threat. He would root them out. He would destroy them. He was an instrument of God's wrath, or so he believed. The journey neared its end. Saul could almost taste victory. He envisioned the arrest of the Christians in Damascus. He saw their fear. He felt no pity. Didn't they deserve God's judgment? They deserved his wrath. Little did Saul know God had other plans. A light, brighter than the sun. It shone down from heaven. It surrounded Saul. He fell to the ground, blinded by its intensity. He was terrified. What was happening? A voice boomed from the light. "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" Saul trembled. Who was this speaking to him? "Who are you, Lord?" he stammered. The voice answered, "I am Jesus whom you are persecuting." Saul was stunned. Jesus, but Jesus was dead. He had been crucified. Could it be? Could this be the risen Christ, the one the Christians proclaimed? The light faded. Saul was left blind. His world plunged into darkness. He was led by the hand into Damascus. He was a changed man. The encounter had shaken him to his core. He was no longer the confident Pharisee. Paul immediately preaches in Damascus, but faces death threats recorded in Acts 9:20-25. He goes to Jerusalem where the disciples fear him, but Barnabas vouches for his conversion written in Acts 9:26-27. Paul then spends 3 years in Arabia before returning to preach as he wrote in Galatians 1:15-18. It was then he met with Peter for 15 days. His missionary work intensifies, and he becomes known as Paul from Acts of the Apostles 13:9. Acts 13:21, Paul embarks on 3 missionary journeys, spreading the gospel across the Roman Empire. He establishes churches in cities like Philippi, Corinth, and Ephesus. His letters, also known as epistles, address these churches, forming much of the New Testament. During his journeys, Paul faced numerous challenges. In Philippi, he was imprisoned but miraculously freed. In Athens, he delivered a profound speech at the Areopagus. On his way to Rome, he survived a perilous shipwreck, demonstrating his unwavering faith. Acts 28:16-31. Paul remains under house arrest in Rome, where he continues preaching and writing letters. According to tradition, he is later executed under Emperor Nero, as alluded to in 2 Timothy 4:6-8. Clement of Rome circa 96 AD, a disciple of the apostles, describes Paul's missionary labors and suffering. Paul, through jealousy and strife, showed the way to the prize of endurance. After preaching both in the East and West, he gained the illustrious reputation due to his faith and suffered martyrdom under the prefects, written in 1 Clement 5:5-7. Ignatius of Antioch circa 107 AD refers to Paul as a great teacher and martyr, encouraging Christians to follow his example. He writes that Paul faithfully preached the gospel, endured hardships, and ultimately died for Christ. From the letter to the Ephesians 12:2. Polycarp of Smyrna circa 110 AD, a disciple of John, affirms Paul's letters as scripture and describes his suffering for the faith. Paul endured chains, was driven away, was stoned, and preached both in the East and the West. As Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians 9:1-2, Tertullian circa 200 AD explicitly states that Paul was beheaded in Rome under Nero. Paul was beheaded and Peter was crucified during the persecution under Nero. From Scorpius 15. Eusebius of Caesarea, circa 325 AD, compiles earlier traditions, confirming Paul's beheading and linking it to Nero's persecution. From Ecclesiastical History 2.25.5-8. Scripture presents Paul as a zealous persecutor transformed into Christianity's greatest missionary. Early church fathers affirm his suffering, influence, and martyrdom in Rome. His life exemplifies radical transformation, faithfulness, and unwavering commitment to Christ. Thanks for watching The Nonprofit. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed this video of the Apostle Paul.